Hello everyone. Have you ever imagined what might be buried beneath our feet, waiting thousands of years to be discovered? From stone-made armor that defies our imagination to brains that survived intact for 4,000 years, get ready to explore some of the world's most incredible and mysterious archaeological discoveries. Let's check out some ancient stone armor. The armor was discovered inside the tomb of China's first emperor, also known as Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. The site is best known for being the place where the world-famous terracotta warriors were discovered and has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1987. The mausoleum is enormous, and archaeologists are nowhere near finishing their work there yet. The stone armor is so intricate that it could almost be considered a work of art, with each suit made of over 600 pieces of stone connected by bronze wires to ensure the person inside it can move easily. The discovery, which happened in 2013, marked the first time that Qin Dynasty armor had ever been found, but there's no shortage of it now. 87 suits of stone armor have been identified inside the mausoleum so far, but those at the scene suspect that there might be as many as 6,000. The sheer amount of armor in the tomb is yet another sign of how powerful Qin Shi Huang was, and what a massive impact his death had on the nation. A collection of fantastic bronze artifacts was found inside a Western Shao Dynasty tomb in Baoji City in Shanxi Province in China in December 2013. The treasure haul includes a ritual tureen, soup bowls, and wine vessels, all of which were probably used as part of a funeral ritual when the tomb was sealed. The tomb, which is simply known as Tomb M4, is around 3,100 years old and contains 44 pieces of bronzeware in total. The ritual tureen is the most remarkable object in the collection, as it's adorned with carvings of dragons and birds, and finished with no fewer than 192 spikes. Some of the artifacts seem out of place with what we know of the area at the time. It's been speculated that they might have been spoils of war, buried with the unidentified individual within the tomb as a mark of respect. The names of several Shang clans are inscribed on several of the vessels inside the tomb, but the tomb is almost certainly that of a high-ranking member of the Shao people. If these artifacts had been looted from the Shang, the person in the tomb might have been a military officer who commanded some of those raids. Last year, during an archaeological excavation in a remote region of Turkey, a group of archaeologists discovered something completely unexpected. A team of archaeologists was excavating the site when they came across a discovery that left everyone surprised. As they slowly removed the soil, the archaeologists found a rather strange object embedded in a very ancient rock. At first glance, it seemed like something ordinary, an old and worn-out stone. But after carefully removing the excess soil, they realized that there was an ancient cell phone completely encrusted in the rock. This caused great astonishment and confusion among the team, as the object was clearly trapped there for a very long time, almost becoming part of the stone itself. The phone, now known as Fossil 231, seemed to belong to a very recent era to be in a place where everything dated back more than 2,000 years. When they analyzed the object closely, the archaeologists noticed that it was a cell phone model manufactured in the late 1990s, very popular at the time. How that device ended up trapped inside such an ancient rock was something no one could explain. News of this discovery quickly spread across the entire world. Ordinary people, experts, and curious individuals started trying to understand how this could be possible. Many theories emerged. Some said it was proof of time travel. Others believed the phone had been deliberately buried as a prank years ago, while some claimed there might be something supernatural involved. The scientists then decided to seek international help to unravel the mystery. Technology and archaeology specialists from several countries were sent to examine the cell phone and the rock in detail. Various tests were conducted, including using special devices capable of detecting the age of the materials. Surprisingly, all the tests confirmed that the rock was indeed very ancient, around 2,300 years old, while the cell phone was just over 20 years old. What increased curiosity even further was the fact that the cell phone had fused perfectly with the stone, with no apparent signs of having been placed there artificially. To this day, no one knows exactly how the cell phone ended up inside that ancient rock. The mystery remains, and Fossil 231 continues to be one of the most curious and unexplained finds in the history of modern archaeology. The discovery deeply stirred people's imagination and made the entire world question what we truly know about time and history. While awaiting new discoveries and scientific explanations, scientists ask you to subscribe to the channel now so they can continue studying Fossil 231. Additionally, they want to hear your opinion about this discovery in the comments. Finding anything that has a provable connection to an ancient British monarch is usually a good way to make a fortune, and so the person who found this gold hat pin in April 2019 is hoping that a link between the pin and a famous portrait of King Edward IV can be proven. Lisa Grace found the pin with her metal detector in a field in Lincolnshire, and after recovering it from the ground, she identified it as a so-called sun in splendor. It's the personal emblem of the king and was worn by him as a hat pin as he posed for several portraits during his reign. Aside from being a ruler, he was also a warrior, and during his first reign, his House of York was in constant conflict with the House of Lancaster for control of the British crown. As the design is so personal to the king, it's not unreasonable to think that it might have been lost in battle, especially since Lisa's discovery was almost certainly made around the year 1485. Even the stone, a purple amethyst, is known to be a favorite of the king. It's worth $15,000 just as a piece of jewelry, but if it can be proven to be Edward's, it could be worth millions. It seems that for almost as long as there have been human babies, people have needed bottles to feed them with. Here's an ancient pig-shaped bottle that was found in Puglia, Italy in December 2013. The bottle was found inside an immaculately well-preserved rock-cut tomb in the town of Manduria. The tomb was found in an undisturbed state, with bands of red, ochre, and blue paint still clinging to the walls. Scientists have been able to confirm that it's at least 2,400 years old, which means the pig-shaped baby bottle must be at least that old too. The presence of the baby bottle is unexplained because there were no infants in the tomb. Instead, it contained the remains of 2 adults. The rest of the funerary goods they were buried with are perfectly normal for the era. There can be little doubt that the bottle was intended for a child. It has cute eyelashes, human-like eyes, and pointy ears. The best guess of historians is that the female occupant of the tomb was believed to be pregnant when she passed away and was buried, but there's no physical evidence of a pregnancy. Human brains don't tend to survive the mummification process, and nor do they last very long after death and normal burials. In fact, they are generally one of the first things to decompose entirely. That's why the brain that was found in October 2013 is so significant and unusual. It comes from a Bronze Age human, meaning that it stayed intact for over 4,000 years. The discovery was made in Seyitomer, Turkey, at a settlement that was destroyed by an earthquake followed in short order by a fire. It's the combination of the 2 disasters that led to the preservation of the brain. The earthquake covered the unfortunate individual in rubble, and then the fire consumed any remaining oxygen, simultaneously boiling the brain and removing any moisture. Without moisture or oxygen, the brain tissue was unable to decompose. Through careful and detailed analysis of the tissue, scientists hope to be able to understand more about its owner's final few hours, along with possible evidence of ancient brain diseases or abnormalities. It could ultimately lead to a breakthrough in our understanding of human health during the Bronze Age. The Broider Gold Hoard has been the source of disagreement between Ireland and Britain ever since it was discovered in Limavady, Northern Ireland, in the final years of the 19th century. It's thought that it had been hidden below ground for hundreds of years before it was accidentally unearthed by farmers Thomas Nicol and James Morrow as they plowed their field in 1896. The items that made up the hoard were quickly split between the men and their families and sold off in many different directions. It was only when the British Museum acquired some of them and confirmed that they were 2,000 years old that their real value became apparent. And so when the British Crown tried to claim all of the treasure as its own, a very long argument began. Away from the arguing, people were trying to work out the significance of the Golden Boat, which was a very odd sculpture even by the standards of its era. It's now thought that the boat may be a votive offering to an obscure Irish god called Monaghan MacClair, the god of the sea. If so, it's the only such votive offering of its kind ever discovered. 90 miles west of San Diego in California in United States of America, you'll find Southern California's Channel Islands. One of them is called San Clemente Island, and it was on San Clemente Island in July 2013 that a Navy archaeologist found an extremely rare boat effigy made by Native Americans. The island is owned by the Navy, but the Navy employs archaeologists to undertake regular surveys of it. Thousands of artifacts have been found there, which might have something to do with the complete lack of burrowing rodents and worms on the island, which tends to mean artifacts remain sitting on or just below the surface, so they're easy to find. This stone boat, for example, was found lying in the open. It's about 9 inches long and was carved from volcanic rock. That's a difficult material to work with in terms of sculpture, as it's as hard as it is brittle. It's possible that the artist who made the carving specifically chose the rock because it was volcanic, understanding somehow that it was special. Andy Yatsko, the archaeologist responsible for the discovery, believes the boat to be around 1,000 years old. The island was inhabited for something like 9,000 years, so this is a relatively recent object. In September 2014, construction work began on the Murdy wind farms in Wales. The work involved clearing away a lot of peat, and as the workers cleared away the peat, ancient artifacts began to appear. One of them was this ancient piece of wood covered in decorative carvings. Even having cleaned and preserved the wood, historians don't know what to make of it. The best guess of historians is that it served as a tribal marker and was used to delineate territory approximately 6,270 years ago. Finding any decorative art from this era is a rare event in Wales, but this find has significance beyond Wales. It's the oldest piece of decorated timber ever found in Europe. The place it was found would have been on the edge of a lake 6,000 years ago, so it would likely have been a desirable hunting ground. It's understandable that the tribe that lived closest to it would want to assert ownership of it. The oval patterns and zigzag lines etched into the artifact have no literal meaning, but their symbolic meaning must have been clear to whoever saw them. Next, we have a vast collection that was discovered at the site of the Temple of Jupiter Dolisinus in the ancient city of Dalaka in Turkey in November 2013. Jupiter Dolisinus was a weather god to the Roman Empire's citizens, so it's likely that the impressive collection of more than 600 amulets and seals were left as tributes to the deity in the hope that they would bring favorable conditions for crops and harvests. The artifacts range from 2,700 years old to 2,400 years old. The majority of them are made from glass, although there are also examples made from quartz and even stone, which probably tells a story about the wealth and means of the people who left them there. Small holes drilled into some of the seals suggest that they were once worn around the neck on pieces of string, with many bearing inscriptions that might relate to the wearer's identity. In other cases, scenes of animals or people are depicted on the amulets, although whether those depictions were intended to be anything more than decorative is anybody's guess. Jewelry was as personal back then as it is now. The subway lines beneath the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro are currently being expanded. That process means digging into earth that hasn't been disturbed for centuries, and it's resulted in some surprising discoveries. One of them is a tiny ivory toothbrush that's thought to have belonged to Emperor Pedro II. Another is a type of minty toothpaste believed to have been formulated for a Portuguese queen. More than 200,000 discoveries have been made thus far, almost all of which come from the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. Curiously, a substantial number of the artifacts have royal or aristocratic connections. There's even an ornate water bottle with the words "to the royal family" engraved on the side. Archaeologists were initially puzzled by the raft of royal discoveries because this part of the city used to be a slaughterhouse. That's the last place you'd expect to find objects like this. They now think they have an explanation. There's a former imperial palace not far from the site of the digging, and it seems that the palace's occupants used this part of the city as a landfill without telling anybody. The subway workers have been digging through royal trash. Our next range of discoveries is the result of archaeologists racing against time in the Alaskan Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, where land is under threat due to a combination of rising sea levels, melting permafrost, and decreased ice cover contribution to rapid erosion. If the land isn't worked through quickly, archaeological artifacts will be forever lost to the sea. The delta is 3 times the size of Scotland and is home to thousands of people, but all of them are likely to be forced to relocate within the next 50 years. As the ice disappears, remnants of the past are revealed. Some of the most striking are the carved wooden dolls and masks, many of which are in such good condition that they still have traces of their original paintwork. They come from a village called Nunaluk, which was occupied between the 14th and 17th centuries. Nunaluk is vanishing into the sea at a rate of 30 feet every 10 years. Although dozens of these dolls, along with bowls, kayaks, stone tools, and fine ceramics have been recovered, many will have been lost already. A grant of £1.8 million in January 2014 helped a little, but there's still more work to be done. Pay a visit to the Tully House Museum in Carlisle, England, and you'll find 2 ancient wooden tridents on display. The museum has had the tridents since 2009, but the experts there aren't much closer to understanding their full story now than they were the day they arrived. Tests performed on the tridents have dated them to the Neolithic era, some 6,000 years ago, and their purpose is unknown. We're all familiar with the shape of a trident because the 3-pronged spears appear regularly in ancient Greek and Roman mythology and are especially associated with Poseidon and Neptune, but they tend to be made of metal in those stories. These wooden tridents predate those Greek and Roman myths by a long stretch. Each of them is just over 6 feet in length and has been handcrafted from a single piece of oak. They're too thick to have been any use for fishing and too blunt to have been any use in hunting. One suggestion is that they were once covered in animal skins and used as paddles, but they don't seem to be a good shape or design for that either. They're fascinating but also frustrating. Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and stay tuned for more fascinating discoveries. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.